They always said family comes first, but apparently that only applied to my sister and the man she married who once couldn't assemble an IKEA chair without calling me for help. After 20 years of sanding, carving, staining, and practically bleeding sawdust for our family woodwork shop, my parents signed it all over to him. The true heir, as they called him. So, I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply walked out, built my own shop, and watched their empire collapse, plank by plank. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type interested in the comments, and I will give you a heart. I always thought betrayal would feel like fire. Loud, scorching, impossible to ignore. Turns out it feels more like sawdust settling in the air. Quiet, almost soft, until you try to breathe and realise someone stole the oxygen right out of your lungs. That morning in the workshop started like any other. Me unlocking the doors before sunrise, flipping on the lights, running my fingertips across the same wooden counters I refinished last year. The same ones my father praised me for. "You've got real hands, kid," he used to say. Meaning hands that build, hands that fix, hands that keep the family business alive. Hands apparently that were good enough to work, but not good enough to inherit. I had been training for this shop since I was 9. While other kids spent their weekends playing soccer, I was sanding chair legs and learning the difference between oak and walnut. In high school, I didn't go to parties. I went to carpentry competitions. I won 3. Dad bragged about it to literally everyone, the mailman, the neighbour, the guy who sold him fishing gear. You'd think all that pride would eventually translate into trust. Spoiler, it didn't. Meanwhile, my sister's husband, let's call him Trevor, couldn't tell a chisel from a screwdriver, but he talked with that obnoxious confidence that only people who don't know anything seem to have. The man once fixed a jammed drawer using a butter knife and duct tape. My mom applauded him like he'd reinvented engineering. I should have known something was off the moment I walked into the office and found both my parents sitting stiffly across the desk, like they were about to conduct a performance review. My father cleared his throat, a dramatic, unnecessary thing he only does when he's about to say something stupid. "We have an announcement." My stomach dipped. Announcements never end well in families like mine. "Your sister and Trevor will be taking over the woodwork shop," he said, almost proudly, as if he was awarding them something they earned. My mother chimed in, nodding like a bobblehead. "It's time for the business to become more modern." Modern, a word that apparently means run by someone who Googles how to fix a cabinet hinge. I didn't scream or cry or flip the table. Honestly, I think my body was too shocked to process betrayal in real time. My brain was rebooting. "So, you're giving everything to him?" I asked, keeping my voice steady because someone in the room needed to act like an adult. My mother smiled with that tight-lipped expression she reserves for justifying bad decisions. "He's family now, and he has leadership qualities." Leadership qualities. The man once led himself into a glass door twice. My dad leaned back like his decision was final. "We think this is what's best for the shop." Best for the shop? The shop I kept alive during the 3 years Trevor was too burnt out from his stressful marketing job to even visit. Best for the shop. The one whose books I balanced, whose equipment I maintained, whose customers I charmed into coming back every single time. Trevor didn't even know where the fire extinguisher was. And I'm not kidding, we had a drill once. He panicked and grabbed a water bottle. That's the man they chose over me. And here's the real kicker. They didn't even apologise. Not even a half-hearted, "We hope you understand." Instead, they stared at me like I should thank them for the honour of being replaced. I asked them one question: "When did you decide this?" The silence that followed was a confession. Trevor stepped into the office from behind them, because of course he was eavesdropping, with a smile that made my teeth clench. "It was Dad's idea," he said smugly, emphasising the word dad like I wasn't biologically connected to the man who made that choice. My father didn't correct him. Didn't say a thing. Dad always told me I was his right hand. Turns out I was only his right hand when it kept his shop functioning. Not when it came to ownership, legacy, or loyalty. And here's the part that stung the most. They had planned a whole transition celebration, a lunch, a toast, a literal presentation on Trevor's vision for the future of the shop. Vision. The man's only vision was becoming Instagram famous for pretending to build furniture. I could have stayed, fought, argued, begged. But there's something profoundly clarifying about betrayal. It forces you to choose who you refuse to become. I wasn't going to grovel for the scraps of a legacy I built. I simply walked out, grabbed my coat, and didn't look back. And as I stepped into the cold morning air, something in me crystallized. If they wanted to bet everything on Trevor, they were about to lose everything on Trevor. While they celebrated their new era, I drove straight to the junkyard and bought the rustiest, cheapest, most pathetic looking set of tools you've ever seen in your life. They looked like they'd survived the apocalypse. Maybe they had, but those tools, they were mine. My parents thought they were replacing me. They didn't realize they were setting me free. And if you were in my shoes right now, heart pounding, betrayal burning your lungs, and revenge taking shape, what would you do first? Because the next thing I did changed everything. The thing about revenge is that it doesn't announce itself. It starts as a whisper, a tiny spark in your ribcage that says, no, actually, this isn't how your story ends. By the time I pulled into the gravel lot next to that abandoned warehouse, that whisper was a scream wearing steel to boots. The place looked like a horror movie set. Peeling paint, rusted metal rails, broken windows. Perfect. If I was going to rebuild my life, why not start from the ashes? The landlord practically begged me to take it. Nobody wants it, he said. Roof leaks, wiring's old, plumbing's questionable. So is my family, I replied. I'll take it. He blinked twice, probably unsure if I was joking. Even I wasn't sure. Inside it smelled like dust and the ghosts of bad decisions. But it was mine. Every inch of that broken space felt like possibility. And anger. Mostly anger. But anger is a kind of fuel no one teaches you to use until you've got nothing left but fire. I spent the next hour pacing the cracked concrete floor, replaying everything my father said. Modernise the shop, give Trevor a chance. He's family now. That last one felt like a punch. I was born into that family, but apparently marriage is a faster lane to loyalty than blood. Fine, let them keep their golden boy. I was about to build something they couldn't steal because they didn't believe I had the guts to create it. That's the beautiful thing about being underestimated. You get to blindside people at full speed. When I finally stopped pacing, I pulled out my notebook, the same one I'd used for years to sketch furniture designs, and wrote one sentence on the first blank page. Build something that makes them regret everything. Then I made a list. Tools I needed, materials I could salvage, people who owed me favours. And at the bottom, customers who would follow me anywhere. It surprised me how long that list was. Apparently some people actually valued skill over charm. Who knew? I didn't sleep that night. I didn't want to. I wanted to move, build, create. By sunrise, I had cleaned half the warehouse and dragged in the junkyard tools. They looked worse in daylight. One saw was so rusty it probably hadn't been touched since the 80s. A drill sputtered like an asthmatic old man. One hammer had a dent that made me wonder if someone used it in a crime. But they worked. Barely. And that was enough. While I scrubbed down the workbench, my phone buzzed. Mom. I let it ring. Then Dad declined. Sister declined even faster. Trevor. Blocked. They didn't want me. They wanted access, answers, control. You don't call the child you betrayed because you suddenly discovered empathy. You call because you want the fallout contained. Not my problem. Around 10 a.m., the warehouse door creaked open. For a split second, my heart jumped, imagining my parents barging in to talk things through, which is family code for gaslight you into submission. Instead, it was Mrs. Lockhart, my favourite customer from the old shop. Your father said you're taking a break, she said, with an eyebrow raised so high it almost hit her hairline. Break? I snorted. Is that what they're calling it? She glanced around at the warehouse, the tools, the dust. Looks like you're building something. Trying to. Good. she said, dropping her bag on the counter and pulling out a swatch of fabric. Because I need a custom frame for my antique mirror. And I'm not trusting that job to a man who once glued his own sleeve to a tabletop. The sound that left my mouth wasn't a laugh. It was something deeper. Relief mixed with validation, the first crack of light after a long storm. I built her frame in silence, letting the rhythm of the tools steady me. Sandpaper, saw, varnish, familiar motions that grounded me. When I finished, she inspected it, nodded once and pressed an envelope into my hand. "For the work," she said, "and for the future." After she left, I opened the envelope. 3 checks from friends she had apparently recruited on my behalf. Others waiting, names listed, addresses. My chest tightened, not with pain this time, but something close to hope. That afternoon, I built 3 more pieces, then 4, then 6. By nightfall, I had a small lineup of finished work that would have made my father proud. Irony is exhausting. The next morning, the first wildfire spark hit, a video. I froze when I saw the thumbnail. Trevor holding one of my designs, a signature table I'd crafted last year, and claiming he built it himself. The comments, brutal. "Why does this look like something she made? Didn't she design that? Bro, this is clearly her work. Why are you lying?" Trevor tried to defend himself, but the internet smells insecurity the way sharks smell blood. I watched, sipping coffee, as his credibility collapsed in real time. Did I feel pity? Absolutely not. I felt something better, momentum, because every comment dragging Trevor's name reminded people of the truth, and the truth always crawled back into the light eventually. But the real turning point came 3 days later, when a message popped up from a name I didn't expect. My father's biggest corporate client. The subject line made my pulse jump. "Are you taking private commissions?" That was the moment I realised my parents hadn't just handed the woodwork shop to the wrong person. They handed me the chance to build something they could never control. And if you were standing there in my shoes, reading that message with betrayal still fresh in your chest, would you write back? Or would you let them drown in the choice they made? The email sat there on my screen like a spark dangling over dry wood. Dangerous, thrilling, and practically begging to be fanned into a wildfire. My father's biggest corporate client wasn't the type to reach out casually. This was a man who scheduled conversations 3 weeks in advance and treated time like currency minted from gold. For him to message me directly, bypassing the family shop entirely, meant only one thing. Something inside their precious operation was already crumbling. I read the email again slowly. "I heard you're working independently now. I've always admired your craftsmanship. Are you accepting private commissions?" A compliment and an opportunity wrapped in one sentence. But more importantly, a confirmation. Word had spread. People were talking. Not about the shop, not about Trevor's laughably staged woodworking videos, but about me. The daughter they pushed aside like an old chair missing a leg, the one keeping her head down while building her own empire from scratch. It was almost poetic. I typed a response. Professional, brief, confident, and hit send. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with a reply. Not a confirmation, a request. A large one. A commission so big it would take weeks of non-stop work and bring in more money than I made in 3 months under my parents. Felt something rise in my chest. Pride, yes, but also something sharper. Something like vindication. The kind you feel when the universe finally hands you the microphone and says, "Go ahead, speak your truth." I walked around the warehouse, pacing, planning, imagining the build. Clients like him didn't come around twice. If I could pull this off, it wouldn't just be a project, it would be a declaration. Meanwhile, across town, my parents were probably preparing some sort of ridiculous grand opening for Trevor's takeover. Maybe balloons. Maybe one of those giant scissors people use to pretend ribbon cutting is glamorous. I pictured Trevor rehearsing a speech in a mirror, practicing his "I'm so honoured to lead this family legacy" voice. The image made me laugh harder than it should have. That afternoon, while I was cutting lumber for a prototype, my phone rang again. Mom. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" She didn't ease into it. "Your father is upset," she said sharply, as if I'd personally burned down the shop. He said you haven't answered his calls. Correct, I replied. Silence. Then, he's worried. No, I said. He's losing control. She gasped like I'd slapped her. Don't be dramatic. Mom? He replaced me with someone who can't even spell mahogany. I'm not the dramatic one. In the background, I heard the faint sound of Trevor's voice, high-pitched, anxious. Perfect. Your father wants you to attend the family meeting tonight, she continued. It's important. You mean the meeting about the business I built but got excluded from? Another gasp. Still the family shop. Then let the family enjoy it, I said. I'm busy. Doing what? I smiled. Building something that actually belongs to me. I hung up before she could argue. The old me, the version they moulded from guilt, obligation and fear, would have apologised, driven home and sat through that meeting like a good daughter. But not this version. Not the one rediscovering her spine, not the one standing in a warehouse full of potential and breathing air that wasn't poisoned by favouritism. As I worked, I kept thinking back to all the years I spent proving myself to people who'd already made up their minds. The late nights, the double shifts, the holidays where I stayed behind to finish custom orders while my sister and Trevor lounged around like royalty. If martyrdom were a sport, I would have been undefeated. But martyrdom doesn't pay bills, and loyalty doesn't erase betrayal. Late that night, as I locked up the warehouse, I noticed a car parked across the street, a familiar one, my father's. He stepped out looking older than I remembered, exhausted, grey around the edges, weighed down by consequences he never thought he'd face. We need to talk, he said firmly. I didn't move. About what? About the shop. You mean the shop you handed to a man who thinks a router is a Wi-Fi device? He flinched. Good. I made a mistake, he admitted, rubbing his forehead. A big one. I crossed my arms. Which part, the betrayal or the stupidity? He hesitated. Both. That caught me off guard for a moment. Vulnerability wasn't in his vocabulary. Trevor's overwhelmed, he continued. Orders are late, customers are complaining, tools are breaking. The crew doesn't respect him. A short list of predictable outcomes? You didn't think any of that would happen? I asked quietly. He sighed. I thought maybe he'd grow into it. That he would take responsibility, be a provider. You tried to manufacture a son, I said. But you already had a daughter who did the job better. The silence was heavy, bitter. True, I want you back, he said suddenly. The business needs you. That was rich. No, I replied. What you want is a clean-up crew, someone to fix the disaster you created. His voice cracked slightly. I'm asking for another chance. Then you're asking the wrong person, I said. His jaw tightened. He wasn't used to rejection. Is this about money? He demanded. No, I said. It's about respect and the fact that I'm not patching holes in a sinking ship when I can build my own fleet. He followed my gaze to the warehouse. This place, he scoffed. It's falling apart. So was I replied. Now, we're both getting rebuilt. He looked shaken, like the ground beneath him was shifting in ways he couldn't control. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, a text buzzed on my phone. From the corporate client, excited to work with you, sending deposit now. I held up the screen so he could see it. His eyes widened, his future dimmed, his defeat sharpened. You're choosing them over family, he whispered. No, I said. I'm choosing myself. For the first time ever. His shoulders slumped. So, you're really done with us? I locked the warehouse behind me and walked past him without hesitation. I'm done being your backup plan. And as I stepped into my car, I saw in his eyes the moment he realised he hadn't just lost the shop's only backbone. He'd lost the daughter he never deserved. The thing no one tells you about walking away is that the universe doesn't clap for you immediately. It just quietly rearranges the pieces and waits to see if you're brave enough to play the new game. 2 weeks after that conversation in the parking lot, the new game was in full swing. My warehouse no longer looked like a crime scene from an abandoned thriller. It looked like a workshop. A real one. The kind of place where sawdust in the air feels less like a mess and more like a crown. I'd patched the roof with a roofer who owed me a favour, rewired the lights with a retired electrician who missed the feeling of being needed, and repurposed half the old shelving from a thrift store that was closing down. Everything was mismatched, second-hand, and a little rough. Kind of like me. But it worked. Orders started coming in steadily, first from people who knew me from the old shop, then their friends, then their co-workers, then complete strangers who found me from a single tagged photo online. My workbench became my therapist. My tools, my language, every table leg, every headboard, every custom cabinet was my way of saying, you tried to erase me, but I carved myself back into the story. One afternoon, while I was finishing a custom conference table for the corporate client, my phone buzzed again, this time with a notification I didn't expect. A tag from the old shop social media page. Sponsored post. There in all his clueless glory was Trevor again, standing next to a display of uneven shelves, holding a tape measure upside down. The caption, keeping the Harper legacy alive with quality craftsmanship. I laughed so hard I almost dropped my sander. The comments were better than any revenge monologue I could have written. Didn't you used to build those? Why does everything look crooked now? Bring back the daughter, this dude looks like he Googles how to hold a hammer. As much as I tried to stay detached, I'll admit it was satisfying. Not because they were suffering, but because the truth was finally visible to people who mattered. For once, I didn't have to scream it. People saw it on their own. A few days later, a delivery driver showed up at my door with a stack of wood so perfect I thought it was a mistake. High quality oak, walnut slabs, exotic pieces that made my fingers itch to start carving. This can't be mine, I told him. It's paid for, he replied, handing me the receipt. Special order, note from the buyer. I opened the folded slip, just one line, written in neat blue ink. For your next masterpieces, consider it an investment. Corporate client. I leaned against the workbench and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Support without strings, investment without control. It felt foreign. And that's when it hit me like a mallet to the chest. My parents had spent years preaching about loyalty and sacrifice, but it took a client, someone outside the family, to treat me like my skills and time actually had value. My parents never invested in me. They used me. Then they traded me. The ache that came with that realization wasn't sharp anymore. It was dull, old, familiar. But it also came with something newer. Relief. Because now that I saw it clearly, I could finally stop chasing what they were never going to give. That evening, as the sun dipped down and golden light spilled across the workroom, I heard a car pull up outside again. I recognized the sound before I even saw it. My mother's sedan. For a moment, I considered pretending I wasn't there. Lights off, door locked, ghost mode. But avoidance is just delayed confrontation dressed in quiet. I wiped my hands on a rag and opened the door before she even knocked. She stood there in her winter coat, eyes tired, shoulders slumped. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the weight of everything had finally settled on her instead of me. Can I come in? She asked softly. Depends, I said. Is this a guilt trip or an actual visit? She flinched, then nodded, accepting the hit. An actual visit. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, scanning the workshop. The tools, the work in progress, the sketches pinned to the wall. Her eyes lingered on the conference table, the careful joinery, the detailed carvings along the edge. You did this? All of it, I said. She swallowed hard. It's beautiful. Thank you, I replied, because I'm still polite even when I'm done being obedient. She didn't speak for a moment, just traced a pattern on the wood with her fingertips. The old shop isn't doing well, she finally said. I leaned back against the wall. Not my problem. I know, she whispered. But your father? He's not handling it when things were good, I said. He just had me to cover for him. Her eyes met mine. There was no denial in them this time. No defensive justification. No, he did his best. Just quiet agreement. You were always the one keeping it together, she said. We leaned on you too hard. I huffed out a bitter laugh. No, you didn't lean. You climbed on and expected me not to break. You're right, she said, which for my mother might as well have been a confession in court. We thought you'd always be there. Thought you'd understand. Thought you'd forgive. You didn't give me anything to forgive you with, I replied. You didn't say we made a mistake. You said this is what's best. She nodded slowly. We were wrong. It should have felt victorious to hear that. It didn't. It just felt late. Too late. Like apologising to a broken chair after sitting on it for 20 years. Why are you really here? I asked. To apologise? Or to convince me to go back and fix everything? Her lips trembled. Both. At least she was honest. Your father's proud, she continued. Stubborn. He told himself giving the shop to Trevor was about the future, but it wasn't. It was about his ego. He wanted to be the man who picked the next leader. Not the one who admitted he'd failed to raise the right one. He didn't raise me, I said. He just benefited from me. She closed her eyes briefly, like the truth physically hurt. You deserved better, she whispered. From him, from me, from all of us. I didn't say, I know. I didn't say, it's okay. I didn't say anything to make her feel better about something that wasn't better. She took a shaky breath. I saw your work being shared online, she said. People are impressed. They're saying, you're the real legacy. Those words hit differently. Not because I needed them, but because they proved what I already knew. The story my parents told themselves was collapsing under the weight of reality. I came to tell you I'm proud of you, she added. Not for staying, for leaving. That one sentence wedged itself under my ribs. For a second, I saw not the woman who stood silently while my future was handed away, but the girl she once was, probably swallowed by someone else's decisions too. Maybe this wasn't the first time my family erased a daughter. It was just the first time one walked away. Your father won't come here, she said. He's too ashamed, but he's terrified. He misses you. He misses the shop the way it was. He misses feeling like he was in charge. He never was in charge, I replied. He just thought he was. She nodded. He knows that now. She glanced at the door, then back at me. I'm not asking you to go back. I wouldn't even if he begged me to. I just needed you to know we see it now. What we did. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't enough. But it was something. A crack in the armour. An admission. I let out a slow breath. I'm happy here, I said, even when it's hard, even when I'm scared. Because at least everything I'm building now, it's mine. She smiled sadly. That's all I wanted for you. I just didn't realise we were standing in the way of it. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope, placing it on the workbench. What's that? I asked, not touching it. Something that should have been yours a long time ago, she said, and something that might change what comes next if you decide to open it. And as she walked out of the warehouse, leaving me alone with the envelope and 1,000 unanswered questions, one thought burned brighter than the rest. Whatever was inside that paper wasn't just going to expose the past. It was going to redefine the kind of revenge I was about to take. I didn't touch the envelope at first. It sat there on my workbench like a living thing, breathing quietly, daring me to open it and detonate whatever truth my mother had finally decided I deserved. Funny how the same people who withheld honesty for years suddenly become generous with secrets once consequences start knocking at their door. For an hour, I circled the workroom, pretending to clean, pretending to organise tools, pretending that I wasn't mentally unravelling every possible scenario. Was it money? A contract? My grandmother's original deed? An admission of guilt written in Mum's shaky handwriting? Wouldn't that be poetic? Betrayal documented on paper so it could never be denied again. Eventually, curiosity peeled away the last layer of hesitation. I washed my hands because, yes, even in betrayal, I refused to get fingerprints on important documents. Grabbed the envelope and tore it open. Inside was a folded letter and a second envelope sealed with wax. Wax! My parents had even sealed their Christmas cards. Why on earth was this sealed like a royal decree? I opened the letter first. It was from my mother. Her handwriting trembled so much the letters almost vibrated off the page. Before your grandmother passed, it began. She left a set of instructions regarding the shop, the land, and the family business. We did not follow them. My chest tightened. I kept reading. She believed you were the rightful heir to the shop. She saw your skill, your work ethic, your passion. She said you were the only one who could carry the Harper craft into the next generation. She said the shop was yours. The words punched straight through me. My grandmother, the only person who ever saw me without judgment, had chosen me, not the family name, not the tradition. Me and my parents buried it. Your father disagreed, the letter continued. Of course he did. He believed tradition meant the business should pass to a man, regardless of merit. I exhaled sharply, not shocked, not surprised, just angry at how absurdly predictable it all was. We hid her instructions. We told ourselves it wasn't the right time. We told ourselves you would understand. But the truth is, we let our pride guide our decisions, not your grandmother's wishes. I stopped reading. Pride. The same pride that kept them from apologising, the same pride that made them choose Trevor. The human embodiment of misplaced confidence over someone who'd actually earned the right to lead. I unfolded the wax-sealed envelope. Inside was a copy of my grandmother's will. Her real one. Her handwriting was steady, confident, warm. The Harper Woodwork shop shall belong to my granddaughter. She is the legacy. My throat tightened. I sat on the stool beside my workbench, the document trembling slightly in my hands. I wanted to scream or cry or laugh at the cosmic ridiculousness of it all. Instead, I whispered, "You really believed in me, didn't you?" The room didn't answer, but the silence felt less empty, less cold. As the emotions settled, something else rose. A slow, controlled, powerful wave of realization. I wasn't just building my own shop. I was fulfilling my grandmother's last wish. The legacy my father tried to rewrite wasn't his to rewrite. It was mine to reclaim. My phone buzzed. The timing was almost cinematic. A message from an unknown number. I opened it. A photo. The old shop. Or what used to be the old shop. Shelves collapsed, tools scattered. A half-finished project snapped in half like someone sat on it. The caption, "Is this supposed to look like this?" Another message followed. "I want my deposit back." Then another, "This place isn't the same without you." And another, "Who's running this now? It's a mess." I stared at the screen. The collapse had begun, not because I sabotaged anything, not because I wished for it, but because the truth always catches up eventually and incompetence doesn't know how to hide. My phone rang. This time, Dad. Again! I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. I let it sit. Instead, I got up, walked to my workbench, and traced the edge of my grandmother's document with my fingertips. She had seen my talent before anyone else believed in me. She had trusted me with her legacy long before I knew I needed one. I whispered, "I'll do it. I'll honour what you wanted." That's when my phone buzzed again. But this time, it wasn't family. It was the corporate client. "We want to feature your work," the message said, "publicly. A full installation." My heartbeat quickened. A full installation wasn't normal. That was the kind of opportunity that put small businesses on the map. That was exposure. That was reputation. That was a spotlight. I typed back, "Hand steady. I'm listening." A moment later, he responded, "I'm attending a woodwork conference next month and need a centerpiece built by a rising artisan. A legacy piece. Something unforgettable." Legacy. The universe really had a sense of dramatic timing. I closed my eyes and breathed in. This wasn't just a commission. This was my grandmother's will in action. This was the universe saying, "Step up. This is yours." A notification popped up. My father again. I let it sit while I drafted designs, rough sketches, sharp lines, bold curves. A piece that would tell a story without words. The story of a daughter erased by her family and resurrected by her own hands. Hours passed. The warehouse grew colder, but I barely noticed. When I finally stopped sketching, the sun was rising. I stared at the design spread across my table. an intricate carved table with interlocking patterns and a signature twist my grandmother loved. I whispered, "That's the one." My phone buzzed again, but this time it was my sister. The message was short. "Dad's losing it. Please call him." For a brief moment, guilt tried to sneak in, but guilt has no power over a person who finally understands their worth. I typed back, "He can call when he's ready to tell the truth." And as I set the phone down, the sunrise washing gold over the warehouse walls, I realised the revenge wasn't the destruction of the old shop. It was the creation of a legacy they could never take credit for. People think revenge is loud, explosive, dramatic, something involving shouting matches and furniture flying across the room. But real revenge? The kind that rewrites bloodlines and resets family hierarchies, it's quiet, precise, surgical. It starts the moment you stop chasing their approval and they start chasing your absence. And mine started the morning I stepped into my warehouse with the design for the installation buzzing in my head like an electric current. Nothing else mattered. No voicemails from Dad, no guilt-laced texts from my sister, no emotional Hail Marys from Mom. The only thing that mattered was the wood beneath my hands and the legacy breathing through every grain. I threw myself into the work, losing track of time in the way only passion can bend hours. Days blurred into nights, nights into mornings, until the workshop felt less like a place and more like a heartbeat. I carved the centerpiece with a level of precision bordering obsession. Sharp edges for the betrayals, interlocking patterns for the memories, curves shaped after the designs my grandmother taught me when I was 12. Every stroke of the chisel was a sentence I never got to say. Every layer of varnish was a truth they tried to bury. And by the time I stepped back, sawdust in my hair, breathed ragged, eyes burning, the piece stood in front of me like a declaration: I survived you. The corporate client visited the warehouse 2 days later. He didn't speak at first, just circled the piece slowly, silently, palms pressed together like he was in church. When he finally spoke, his voice dropped to a reverent hush. "This isn't craftsmanship. This is a story." "All my work is," I said, "but this one is personal." He nodded. "Then let the world hear it." He wrote a check on the spot, a life-changing one, the kind of check that funds futures, not just projects. I didn't cry, not then. I held steady, professional, confident. But when he left and the warehouse door clicked shut behind him, my legs gave out. Not from exhaustion, but realization. My future wasn't in my parents' shop. It was right here, in my hands. That evening, reality came knocking again, hard, loud, persistent, literally a pounding on the warehouse door, so forceful I thought the hinges would snap. I opened the door expecting a delivery driver. Instead, it was my father, unshaven, breath visible in the cold, shoulders hunched like a man carrying failure in both hands. For the first time in my entire life, he didn't look like the unshakable patriarch. He looked human, flawed, scared, aging. "I need to talk to you," he said, voice cracking. I stepped aside, not because he deserved an audience, but because I deserved closure. He walked in slowly, scanning the workshop, eyes landing on the centerpiece. His expression twisted. Shock, pride, confusion, fear. "You made this?" "Yes," I said flatly. "Alone." He ran his hand along the smooth, carved edge. "This is remarkable." "Yes," I repeated, "it is." His breath hitched. "I messed up." "You did," I said. No softness, no comfort, just truth. "I thought giving the shop to him would make me look strong," he whispered, like I was building the future, like I was choosing what a man should choose. "And what should a man choose?" I asked. "His most capable child," he said, voice shaking. "You." The apology wasn't enough. It didn't rewind time. It didn't erase the betrayal or the humiliation. But hearing it finally felt like dropping a weight I'd been carrying since childhood. He sank onto a stool, elbows on his knees. "The shop is falling apart," he admitted. "Trevor can't keep up. Orders are ruined. Customers are furious. The bank is calling. Your sister is panicking." And I... He swallowed hard. I don't know how to fix it. You don't, I said simply. Not this time. He dragged a hand across his face. I don't deserve your help. Correct, I said. You don't. He winced. But I'm asking anyway. I let the silence stretch. It wasn't spite. It was power. For the first time, the balance was real. I'm not going back, I said finally. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your hidden labour. I'm not your fixer. He nodded slowly, as if each word carved a new line into him. Then what do I tell the family? Tell them the truth, I said. Tell them you gambled the legacy. Tell them you lost. Tell them your daughter wasn't the disappointment. You were. His eyes brimmed, but didn't fall. My father was many things, but he wasn't weak. That's why this moment mattered. He stood, exhaled shakily, looked at the centerpiece once more. Your grandmother was right about you, he said softly. You are the legacy. And then he left. No dramatic exit, no final plea, just a quiet acceptance of consequences he built with his own hands. A few days later, the conference arrived. My installation sat under the spotlight like a crown, bold, intricate, unforgettable. People swarmed at photographers, captured it, influencers posted it, critics praised it, buyers asked for cards. And when the announcer called my name, not my father's, I felt something inside me snap into alignment. For the first time, I wasn't the daughter who kept a family business alive. I wasn't the forgotten heir. I wasn't the invisible worker. I was the builder of something entirely my own. After the conference, as I stepped outside into the crisp evening air, my phone buzzed again. A message from my sister. You ruined everything. I stared at the screen and smiled. I replied with 3 simple words. I built better. And just like that, the past finally released me. Because revenge isn't destroying what they have. It's thriving in a way they never imagined you could.